Hello and welcome to this week's Robin Pod Weekly, which is of course powered by Budget Tyres Auto Centre, the only car specialist trusted by the players, club officials and supporters of Hull Kingston Rovers. And it's going to be a bumper edition of the Robin Pod Weekly as he introduced 3 new segments to the weekly podcast. Coming up is Keith's Corner, a man who's more divisive than Marmite. We've got Robins Remembered and we've got Stat Attack, where each week I give you some more stats. Robins Remembered, we look back at the career of somebody who's played for Hull Kingston Rovers. Joining me is Scott Solway, a Robin Pod regular, and joining him is Nathan from the Gerrim Onside Rugby League fan site and Hull Kingston Rovers supporter. Good evening, gentlemen.
Evening, Johno.
Good evening,
Evening, Nathan.
Nathan, we'll start with you. It's your debut on the Robin Pod. People might not be familiar with your work yet and what you're doing. Tell us about Gerrim Onside.
So, Gerrim Onside is a rugby league fan site that started a couple of months ago. Basically, I remember the fans. There was a Rovers fanzine in the mid-2000s. I can't remember the name of it, but and I thought there was a lack of sites that offered a voice from the fans, and those that did, the rugby league sites that there are, not to sort of name any, but they're full of like adverts and pop-ups, and I didn't really want that. And I wanted to be able to write about rugby because I've never done it before, and I've watched it most of my life. I felt that I want to give fans of all stripes a voice with the site, and that's been shown by the fact that I've been willing to host several Hull FC fans on the site. And in the first couple of months, we've had a couple of thousand views, so I'm happy. I think we launched in May, and we're up to nearly 60 posts already. I do weekly results roundup, weekly transfers, disciplinary updates, plus any opinion pieces that any fans want to send in. Yeah, that's basically it.
Scott, do you remember the old East Hull is Wonderful fanzine that you could get?
I do, and I remember one before that as well, Flag Edge Touch, that Sean Dickens and Darren Conway used to edit back in the day, late 80s, early 90s, and then it became East Hull is Wonderful. There's been 2 or 3 Rovers fanzines over the years. They were a good read. They were good.
Yeah. Nathan, it's not just obviously Hull Kingston Rovers you cover rugby league in general, and are you looking for people who can contribute as well?
Yeah, absolutely. You can drop us an email at Gerrim Onside. That's GERRIM and then onside@gmail.com. I welcome any fans of any stripes writing opinion pieces on their team, giving us their view. It's all welcome.
Yeah, and I suppose, Scott, there's a lot of synergy between what Nathan's doing in terms of Gerrim Onside and how the Robin Pod came about when me and Joe started it, about giving fans the opportunity to voice their opinions. We've got a fan coming on later, 𝗬𝗂𝗡𝗴𝗏. Now, you'll hear what he has to say, and I think it's important that, especially in this day and age, isn't it, that no matter what your opinion, you get the opportunity to air it. Now, some people might not agree with it, some people might agree with it, but that's what's great about sport, isn't it? That everyone's got an opinion, so there needs to be more platforms for people to be able to share it.
Oh, without a doubt. And I think things like podcasts and obviously Nathan's new venture as well, and back in the old fanzines back in the day as well, that was the opportunity for fans to voice their opinion. You very rarely get your opinion through the clubs. So unless you was a regular contributor to maybe the official club program on a match day, you never really got your say really. Whereas podcasts and websites and fanzines give fans like us an opportunity to voice our opinion and voice our concerns, even our positive thoughts as well. So I think it really is positive. It really is positive that we can actually get our views out there. And if people agree, they do. If they don't, they don't. But that's the whole point of putting our points across. It's to be debated and for people to get into discussion about, isn't it?
Yeah, and Tiger 2001, he used to buy flag edge touch from Sydney Scarborough. I mean, that is a blast from the past, isn't it? Sydney Scarborough, the old music shop in town. The people watching, listening to this certain vintage will be reminiscing, probably like yourself, Scott, about Sydney Scarborough as well.
Yeah, I was a regular at Sydney Scarborough back in the day, buying me 𝗷45 singles when the album charts came out every week in the singles charts.
We're going to come on to the Leeds game very shortly. Nathan, obviously, it's your first time on the Robin pod. I'd just like to get your opinion on Rovers so far this season and how you think they've been doing.
I think it's been a good continuation of the progress we made last year. At the start of the season, I was cautiously optimistic, but I've been following Rovers for long enough to know that we're never exactly predictable. So I was sort of expecting anything at the start of the season. So far, it's been, as I say, a good continuation. I think there are still improvements to be made, especially the games from the last 2 weeks. Throughout the season, we've started strongly and dropped off at the end, or we've not started as well and got better in the second half. So I think consistency is an area that we need to work on. But altogether, from me, when I started supporting Rovers to where we are now, third in the Super League, is a dream, basically. So we can't be anything other than happy with results, but I do also recognise that there's work still to be done throughout the end of the season.
Yeah, Scott, I mean, we'll talk about the Leeds game specifically. I suppose I went on Radio Homicide after the game against Leeds on Saturday and spoke to James Hogarth about the game and gave my opinion. And one of the things that I've sort of picked up on is that we're going through a patch or a run of games where I feel seasons gone by, we'd have probably lost more than we're winning. And we're at a stage of the season where obviously winning's paramount. But we're not necessarily doing it pretty, but we're doing it effectively and we're getting over the line. And hopefully that will lead to, some kind of relative success at the end of the season, whether that's, where we're finishing the playoffs, blah, blah, wherever that may be. But I do think that there's a different, I don't know, there's a bit more of a steeliness about this side. And I'm surprised that some Rove supporters are sort of not dismissing results of the past few weeks, but, not giving the side more praise almost for where we are and how we are churning out these results.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think if we're being honest about it, the last few weeks we haven't been pretty. We've certainly been very, very clunky in attack, but luckily, defensively, we've been superb. The Catalan game could have gone either way, with a golden point. It could have been us, it could have been them. You could argue we shouldn't have gone 14-0 down in the first place, and you've got a lot of work to do to bring that back. But, we got a bit lucky at Castlereagh. We beat Leigh at home, it was clunky. Saturday was a bit clunky in attack as well. But what we do is that we don't give a lot of points away now. Whereas I think that's winning us games. I think I mentioned on my social media after the Leeds game on Saturday, defence won us the game at Leeds. We weren't great with ball in hand. We weren't very good in attack, but we didn't give anything away either. And if you can stay in the game, if that's what Rovers do, the modern day Hull KR stay in games now. It probably started a bit last season. I remember Salford away last season, we were down at half time. We ended up winning the game. It wasn't a good performance. This season, it's carried on. But you're right, in seasons gone past, we'd have gone 18, 20 odd nil down, and then we'd have lost it by 12, 14 points. Even when we don't play very, very well, we're still winning games. That's the sign of a good team. And, the clunkiness in attack will get better. It will get better. But as long as we can keep teams, I always say keep a team with 16. If you can concede 16, no more than 16 points, you've got a chance of winning every game, near enough. And we've been doing that in recent weeks.
Nathan, and I suppose it's all, I mentioned it on last week's Robin pod, that Catalan golden point defeat, we win that, would have been joint top of the league right now. And I know sports full of ifs, shoulda, woulda, coulda, nearly there, whatever. But, to consider that we could be joint top of Super League at this stage of the season, following on from what you said about, our, season's gone by, where we are now is sort of unprecedented for a very long time. It's just that Catalan game was just so frustrating, wasn't it? When you see where we could have been now.
Absolutely. I remember the game quite clearly. I think Golden Point is a very deflating thing anyway, to watch as a fan, because you sort of just waiting for someone to make a mistake, and it was the same with the Challenge Cup final last season. Unfortunately, we made the mistake. We didn't find touch with that penalty. If we'd have found touch with the penalty, we'd have probably gone on to win. But sport's full of sliding door moments, isn't it? You know, if we'd have got on another point against Catalan, we could be top this weekend. But some things happen for you, some against you, and that's just the balance of the sport, isn't it? Really. Yeah,
Wayne Bennett, he had his views about Golden Point. I think he was on the end of a defeat down under in the NRL. He's not a fan of it. Nathan, are you a fan of Golden Point?
I'm not against it. I'm against the fact that if you get to the end of the 80 minutes, you don't come away with a point. I think if you got to the end of the 80 and you go to Golden Point, you should get 1 point each, and whoever wins the Golden Point gets another point, because something doesn't seem fair that you've played that whole game and you're drawing at the end to come away with nothing afterwards.
Yeah, very interesting point. Scott, Rovers 20 points to 12 victors over the Leeds Rhinos. I mean, we've already mentioned it wasn't the prettiest of performances, but it was job done in the end. 2 points going to the Robins. So tries from Jez Litton, Jai Whitbread, Mikey Lewis and Ryan Hall. Lewis with 2 conversions. 6-0 down at half-time, Scott. I mean, it wasn't really until the last sort of 10 minutes, was it, where the Robins really clicked into gear. But what they did is stay in the game. And although the attack wasn't fantastic, the defence made sure that Leeds never got an opportunity to extend their lead more than what they did.
We hung in there. That's what I say. When you're not playing well, you've got to hang in on games. Leeds were under the new coach as well, Brad Arthur's first game in charge. They were going to probably offer an extra 10-15%. They want to impress the new coach, the new manager. But as I said, maybe 2 or 3, 4 seasons ago, we'd have probably capitulated and gone in 18-0 down. But we didn't. We go in 6-0 down. We haven't played well. We've been relatively poor with ball in hand, got very little field position, but yet we only went in 6-0 down, and that was off a kick. So you go in the sheds at half time, really, really positive, and hope that you come out in the second half and you do get a better field position, you get a bit more ball, and you can turn it into points. And that's what we ultimately did in the last 10, 15 minutes or so. A game has won over 80 minutes, not over 40. It'd just be nice to see Rovers play for a full 80 minutes at some point, because if we do one game, somebody's going to get a record hard in, aren't they, at some point?
Yeah, and hopefully as we come to the back end of the season, we see them performances you just mentioned there, Scott, because it'll definitely help us in our quest for the playoffs. Nathan, if we look at the starting lineup, Jack Broadbent came into the side in place of Niall Evalds, which everyone expected and pretty much wanted. Biggest surprise, I guess, will be Tom Opacek starting in the second row. Is that one that you could have seen coming?
I suppose so, yeah. There was an old saying an old philosophy in rugby that any centre can play second row too. I mean, that was way back when, but I think the point sort of still stands. The second row is halfway between a back and a forward, really. So if you can play centre, you're equipped to play second row as well. And I think Tom Opacek offers something that not a lot of people see, and that's his defensive work. He's a very, very good defensive player, and having him in your defensive line helps. I mean, the fact that we've also got Oliver Gildart, who's been strong defensively this season as well, makes it difficult to pick between the two of them, really, which is a better conundrum to have than the opposite problem, which we've had in previous seasons where we haven't had enough players to cover positions. So it's just nice to be on the end of a positive problem for a change.
Yeah, Scott, I mean, Tom Opacek starting second row, I'm nearly my colours to the mast. I'm not having it. He may have executed the game plan that Willie Peters wanted him to do. I suggest that he didn't, by the fact he was only on the pitch for 22 minutes. And you know, like I said, he may have done everything that Willie Peters expects of him in them 22 minutes. I just feel there's other players who could play in that position and do, and it's no slight against 𝗕𝗂𝗡𝗏, but could do a more effective job for the team. And in effect, you know, there was no talk of injury or anything like that. The fact he's gone off after 22 minutes, you're almost wasting an interchange because you're not then using that player again. I don't. It just a bit of a strange one for me. And obviously, you know, Willie Peters, he's not afraid to make changes, is he? And he's not afraid to do things a little bit differently. But yeah, not for me.
I think if Tom is to play second row heading into the future, he's going to have to bulk up a bit. Don't get me wrong. We know, as Nathan's just alluded to, defensively, he's absolutely outstanding. His go forward as a second row, I don't know. He might have to bulk up. He might have to big himself up a bit more to actually, if he's looking to play, or if Willie sees him playing that role long term, I think he's going to have to do a bit of weights and stuff like that. He's going to have to be a bit bigger. As Nathan alluded to there, it's only one step in, isn't it? But, you know, Kane Lynette was a second row and a centre. There's lots of players that have done it before. Gary Prom back in the 80s never played second row, but he did play loose forward on many occasions for Rovers. He was a centre. So it is possible to be done, but I think you've got to be of a certain size and a certain bulk and obviously a certain, you know, weight and things like that. But then you look at people like Liam Farrell at Wigan, not the biggest kid, but second row is his position. So it is possible to be done. Whether Willie sees this as long term, I don't know. But if it isn't long term, is there a place for Tom in the team with the centres that we've got and the backs that we've got? And are we sacrificing or wasting an overseas position, you know, on a player that's not going to be playing regular, which would be criminal, really, if we think about it. So whether Willie sees his position long term as second row remains to be seen.
Yeah, and Bazza85 watching on YouTube, he said it didn't end well for Corey Hall trying to play second row. Wonder if that's the same fate for 𝗕𝗂𝗡𝗏. Time will tell what it will. We'll see. We'll see how they line up against London and whether 𝗕𝗂𝗡𝗏 features in the second row again. Obviously, we saw Tanganoa coming off the bench, which most Rovers supporters will be in support of, won't we? Because we've seen the explosive impact he has coming off the bench compared to when he's doing a full 80 minutes or when he's starting and he's having to do a lot more work. He doesn't seem to have the same impact. So maybe that was a thinking to try and make Tanganoa's impact bigger and greater than what it has been potentially over the last few weeks. Leeds Rhinos scored after 4 minutes. Reece Martin with a converted try. It took Rovers until the 44th minute, Nathan, to get on the scoreboard. Like we said, 6-0 down at half time. Ryan Hall goes over for his try. Fantastic kick from Mikey Lewis, which he absolutely nailed. And you just felt at that stage that once Rovers got on the scoreboard, Nathan, that the Robins were coming back into it. And we didn't have it all our own way in that second half, but it was definitely a sign of things to come.
Yeah, we always have the ability to be dangerous in attack, even when we go behind. In fact, sometimes even more so when we're behind, because we've got sort of Mikey Lewis, maverick magic in the middle of the park, who can create something from nothing. When he had to move the ball about, we're a really dangerous side when we go down the flanks. So sort of 6-0 down, even 12-0, he can never really rule us out of a game. And as Scott said earlier, winning teams stay in games, and that's exactly what Rovers have been doing because of how potent we are in attack. Sometimes, not always, but combined with our defensive solidity, it's really turned out to be a winning formula.
Yeah, Scott, Mikey Lewis with an next try for the Robins. Just showed what he can do, didn't he? Power, strength. You know, for someone who's relatively small, he defied that, didn't he, with that try. Failed the conversion, but let's just talk about Mikey Lewis's performance, because I said to people I was with, Mikey Lewis don't play that game, Rovers don't win it. He took that game on, and he seemed to relish the battle. We saw 2 𝗵𝗂𝗏𝗀𝗧s. And I was talking to someone about the 𝗵𝗂𝗏𝗀𝗧s in that it probably shows you the confidence Mikey has. Not the confidence because he's confident enough to do it, but he's confident enough to do it and know that he might get it wrong, and it won't affect him. The fact you don't see many players go for 1 𝗵𝗂𝗏𝗀𝗧, let alone 2 in the same game. The try he scored and just his all-round impact on the game, a real match winner for me, and someone who was deserving of the man of the match award at the end of the game.
Without a shadow of a doubt. If we're being totally honest, whilst it's a team game and we're defending really, really well, what we are showing in attack, Mike is sort of like dragging us through matches on his own to a certain extent. I know Tyrone had a couple of assists as well. You know, he's been taking a lot of stick recently as Tyrone, but I think some of it's been a bit harsh. But in regards to Mikey, I mean, the try that he scored, he had no right to score that, but he did. You know, he found a way, as you said, for a little kid that he is, his upper body strength and his leg drive is phenomenal for a little kid. It was, you know, who's a scrum half. You know, it really is. But he does drag us through games. He has seemed to have been doing it for a number of weeks now. And you're right. I think if Mikey's not playing on Saturday, we'll lose that game. But somehow he always finds a way to drag us through. But that's what champion players do. That's what good halfbacks do. If your team are not on it, if your team are not clicking with the ball in hand and they're not creating stuff, individual players win your games. We've got Mikey who can do that now. We haven't had a player like that for years who can say, take the game by the scruff of the neck and say, do you know what? We're struggling today, lads, but I'll drag us through. I'll get us over the line. Mikey's doing it week in, week out now. And I think I said a few weeks ago on the podcast, he's a much more mature player now than he was even last season. He's a totally different gravy now, is Mikey. And he's without him, I think we've discussed this, John, haven't we? Without him, we'd struggle. But certainly to win the games that we have won, without a doubt.
Here's a little antidote for you, and we're going to hear from Keith later on in the Robin pod. Keith was speaking to the late, great Roger Millwood's wife at the Leeds game on Saturday. And Keith said to me, he said, look, I think at the moment Mike is the closest player we've ever had to someone like Roger Millwood. And Roger's wife was in full agreement with that. And she actually mentioned that she'd been talking to her son-in-law about the same thing about Mike Lewis. Now, that's a huge, huge comparison to make and you know, huge take on, because Michael Lewis is a great player in his own right. But when you start comparing players of the likes of Roger Millwood to, you know, that's great company to be in, isn't it? And we just hope he continues to fulfill his potential and he ends up being a Hull Kingston Rovers player for a great number of years, but he's in a successful side like the late, great Roger Millwood was. So, yeah, more from Keith later on. Nathan, Scott mentioned Tyrone May. He has been copping a bit of flack from some Rovers supporters. Is it deserved?
No. I think, to be honest, a lot of the people who give Tyrone May stick don't really know much about the game. Because in Tyrone's game, a lot of the time, it's not the things that you notice that he does well, it's the things that you don't notice that he does well. It's his positioning, his marshalling, his work in defence. He is like Terry Campese Mark II in that he can play in a dinner suit and he gets the team to where they need to be. And he's what Mikey needs as well, because Mikey is the maverick who's sort of playing off the cuff, whereas Tyrone May is the one who's thinking 3 moves ahead. And together, that synergy of halfback partnership of one with a fast mind who does things instinctively and one who plans ahead is one that, if it stays together for another couple of seasons, could really be a dangerous halfback pairing. But on the subject of Mikey Lewis, I do sometimes worry that the amount of plaudits that he gets might weigh a little too heavily on him, especially at his age. He's only 23-ish. to be comparing him to Roger Millward, not that I have a point of comparison with Roger Millward because he was way before my time, might add a little bit too much expectation on his shoulders, maybe have a detrimental effect on his game. That remains to be seen, but he's a magical player in his own right, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I do wonder. I mean, I think last season and the season before, I think the pressure weighed heavy on Mikey Lewis.
Definitely.
I think the inclusion in the England squads, the connection he's built up with Shaun Wane. I think Willie Peters has had a huge effect on Mikey Lewis, a player, of course, who played in that same position. And, you know, we saw him, didn't we, the cheekiness at the end of the game when he waved to the Leeds fan. He's still got that in him. He's still got that cheekiness, that humour, that, you know, that he almost wants to entertain and get involved in the game, but he does it to a point now. Whereas before, he let it get on top of him and he let it dominated him almost. And you saw him then do things on the pitch, which he didn't need to do. He gave away penalties. He'd get Simba. He seems to have ironed that out. So, hey, look, you know, he's still so young, isn't he? He's got his whole career ahead of him almost. He's got so much left to still do in the game and achieve. But I do think that over this past season and pre-season and following on from the end of last season, he's growing. He really is growing. So it's going to be fantastic to see where he goes. Scott Taro is a ferocious tackler. I just wish he won't tackle as much as what he is doing because he puts himself in some crazy positions for the benefit of the team.
He does. And I think, again, that's another reason why I think some of, like Nathan's alluded to there, some of the stick that he's been getting is unfounded, really. You know, when it's not working with him with the ball in hand. Now, many might argue that's his job. His job as a back is to get the team around the pitch and, you know, create the tries and do this and do that, etc., etc. But when it's not going right for him, he don't go hiding. He digs in. He digs in for the team. Very rarely misses a tackle. Yeah, he's very unorthodox in the way he tackles sometimes as well, but he never, ever misses a tackle. He will go up against the biggest blokes running at him, twice the size of him. He'll throw himself in front of him. He'll bring him down in any way he can. So when it's not going right in attack for him, he don't go hiding. He don't sulk. He gets on with his job. What can I do for the team? While this isn't working, what can I do to do my part to get this team over the line? And some of the criticism that he's been having these last few weeks, I think, is harsh on him. I really do. I agree with Nathan. It's been really, really tough on him because if you watch him throughout a game without ball in hand, he's superb. He really is. Watch his positioning and his defensive ability. You know, maybe you're right, Johno. Maybe he's doing a bit too much defending, but it'd be easy for him to go hiding. It'd be easy for him to say, well, this ain't come off of me, that ain't come off of me, this ain't working, and go and sulk about it. But he never does. He cracks on because he's got a job to do. And whilst it's not happening in attack for him, he never ever lets the team down defensively. You can't knock him for that. That's a sign of a good pro, that, isn't it?
Yeah, and Mikey Lewis scores that. He misses the conversion, and you're thinking Rovers are going to really kick on now and sort of hammer home the advantage after weathering the storm. But it was Leeds Rhinos who got the next try. They went 12-10 in front. Jack Broadbent with his second mistake of the game, wasn't it? I mean, we saw what he did for the Reece Martin try, albeit the bounce off the underside of the post and the confusion and all the melee sort of around him obviously didn't help him, but he came up with another error. I do think, to be fair, Scott, I mean, albeit two big errors, he did okay. He got more right than he did wrong. Unfortunately, a couple that he did get wrong led to Leeds Rhinos tries. They go in front and you're thinking, God, this is, you know, are Leeds going to come back into this game? And then Jez Litton was introduced to the fray.
Yeah. Made it change it, didn't he? I think from what I've read in the press from Willie Peters as well, he wasn't even sure if Jez was going to get on the pitch at one point. I think he was going to go the 80 with Matt Parcell. And he'd said to Jez, look, you might not get on today, but if you do, be ready. And 10 minutes to go, 15 minutes to go, went right, away you go. And I think he just played Leeds. You know, he got amongst their big lads, didn't he? Going from dummy half and things like that, with, you know, shooting out of dummy half, and it caused mayhem, absolute mayhem amongst the Leeds defence when he came on to Jez. I'll say again, and I've stuck my hand up to this 100 times, and I'll keep saying it. 𝗀𝗂𝗧 are a better team, in my opinion, with Matt Hassel on the pitch. But Ches has a job to do. And if that's him coming on with 15 minutes to go and running the opposition ragged, and that wins us the game like it did on Saturday, then I'm all for that. And the final try that he scored was absolutely sublime, wasn't it? Going from that dummy half there, the way he just went through that gap, and you know, in the pace he had to get to the line was brilliant. So yeah, I think all the players have just got to be ready. But I like Ches. He's a local lad. He wears his heart on his sleeve. But I think there's a time to introduce Ches into a game, and Saturday was the perfect example of that.
Yeah, and Nathan, there's no doubt that Ches Litton coming on had a huge impact on the game. It was only a couple of minutes after his introduction that Rovers then got their third try of the game, Whitbread going over. But we can't not talk about Whitbread's try without talking about the farce of the video referees insisting on watching replay after replay after replay, to the point where I was speaking to somebody who I work with. He was flicking over between cricket and rugby. He saw the try, so he thought he'd click over to the cricket, watch it for 5 minutes, turn back, and they was still looking at the try. You know, it was beggars belief that it took so long for Ben Thaler to award it, let alone the fact, Nathan, it was sent up as a try. Now, I could fully understand if it was sent up as no try and he was looking for a reason to give it. But this was the opposite. You know, it's got to be clear and obvious, hasn't it, whether the referee's wrong in his call. And no matter how many times you watched it, to me, Nathan, it wasn't clear and obvious that the referee was right in awarding it.
Yeah, I think fundamentally the way that we're doing video refs at the moment is not working. It's not working for the sport as a sport, and it's not working for it as an entertainment product, because, as you say, your mate was flicking between the rugby and the cricket. I imagine that he wasn't the only one that was flicking channels while Ben Thaler was taking 5 minutes to award an obvious try. It's clear to me that players have shot clocks for dropouts, for scrums. Video refs should have time limits for their decisions. I'm in full support of that. 100%.
I think, especially when it's awarded as a try, the referee, the video referee, should have a time limit, because it should be obvious if it's not a try. If it's not obvious, which normally you pick up within your first couple of viewings, then you've got to go with the referee's call, because that is the whole fundamentals of the referee awarding it as a try and sending it up as a try. I mean, it's been reported over the last couple of days is that the RFL are looking at scrapping the on-field calls, which I'm in full agreement with as well. I think the referee shouldn't be involved. It should automatically go to the video referee for me, and it should just be, is there any reason why it can't be awarded as a try? No. Boom. And almost take the referee out of it, because it's almost like the referee's offering an opinion on whether it's a try or not, and it shouldn't be. It should be a matter of fact whether it isn't a try. So we'll see how that plays out. Whitbread, of course, he went over for his first try, and then Nathan, like Scott already mentioned, the dart from Litton. I think Leeds, they put a lot of effort into that game. The forwards, the middles, they were setting up very ropey, very tight towards the end, and then we saw the full impact of Ches Litton with that try, that scoot. Great run, and then the jubilation amongst the Rover supporters. That was a 2-point stand, sealed and delivered.
Yeah, it's it reminds me a lot of when Ben Fisher used to play for Rovers. That was one of his tricks, with a quick screw out with dummy half to try and break the line. It's a hooker's classic, isn't it, really? You see a gap in an unset defence and you go for it. And it also helps that Ches is Litton. That Ches is small enough to be sort of quick and wiry enough to dart around a defence.
Yeah, 100%. And Scott, Ryan Hall, he topped the meters made chart with 156 on his return to Headingley. Dean Hadley was top tackler with 46 tackles. He started at prop. Elliot Minchella, he was on 42 tackles. Now, Jay Whitbread, 23 tackles, 19 carries, 141 metres. Was that Jay Whitbread's best game in a Hull Kingston Rovers shirt?
Probably, yeah. It was nice to see him get on the score sheet as well, because that's his first try for the club, I think. That's the first try he scored for the club. So he was rewarded for all his hard work of the season for that try, I think, as well. But yeah, I'd say so. He goes well for us, does Jai, doesn't he? You know, week in, week out, he's always a 7, 8 out of 10 every week. He's one of these players that just goes about his business, really, carries the ball strongly for you. It does quite long minutes as well, which is always a positive. So yeah, it probably was one of his best games that he's played for Rovers. Whether it was his best, I'm not sure, but because I think he's had a few good games this season since we signed him. But he's certainly up there, you know, because he was up against a big Leeds pack in that 𝗪𝗔𝗂𝗃 and you know and all them other lads. So yeah, I think he had a good game with Jai, very impressive, and as I say, he's tried topped it off for him. He deserved that. The reaction when he scored was quite like relief, really. Once he seemed to get the ball down, he was buzzing about that. So yeah, he had a good game.
Elliot Minchella, he said he made 42 tackles. He, I mean, for listeners and viewers of a certain age, will remember Terry Butcher and his bandaged up head. Elliot Minchella, we all saw him at the end of the game. Nathan covered in claret, bandaged up. He looked absolutely shot. He just looked knackered. He looked like he put everything into that game. And of course, he's been pretty busy over the last few weeks, hasn't he? Interesting to see what happens on Friday against London, whether he's afforded the opportunity to have a rest or whether Willie Peters continues with him in the side. Elliot Minchella, Nathan, is he a player who's impressed you this season?
Definitely. He's impressed me in the way that he's stood into the void that Sean Kennedy-Dell's retirement left as a leader on the pitch. I know that Skids is still around backs behind the scenes and what have you, but you get a real sense of Minchella's leading the team while he's on the pitch, leading from the front as well. As you said at the end of the game, just completely knackered. He'd given it all. He's setting the example for the rest of the team to follow, which is what you want, and he's been rewarded with an England call-up, which you can't say that he doesn't deserve, because he's probably been one of Super League's best loose forwards this season. Yeah,
totally echo that, Nathan. Right, we've got the first of one of the Robin Pod's brand new segments. It's called Keith's Corner. Now, I give Keith Pollard 5 minutes to talk about any subject he likes, obviously rugby league related. The twist to it being, I don't know what he's going to talk about until he starts talking. So that is the deal me and Keith have got, and he's allowed to talk about any subject. So the first Keith's Corner is up now. Hi, Keith. How are you today?
Good, Johno. Thanks for inviting me again, pal.
Well, after the varied degrees of success from your last appearance on the Robin Pod, I thought it was only right, Keith, that we gave you opportunity to talk about rugby league. Of course, some people didn't agree with what you said last time. A lot of people did agree. And I think the beauty of sport, rugby league, about life is opinions, isn't it? And whether you agree with them or not, it's important that we all have them.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. Yes, I took some stick, which didn't bother me. I've had 20,000 call me a fat all at once. And there was my own supporters, so that just washes over my shoulders. But yeah, as I say, thanks again for inviting me back. Yes, I did take some stick. But as you rightly said, everybody to their own opinion. Anyway, going back to what we talked about last time about the derby and blah, 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 I was right, wasn't I? We give them a chance to hammer us. We had a first good 20 minutes, and then they took over. And to be fair play, I know this isn't an all FC podcast, but you've got to give credit where it was due. And you've got to give them credit where it was due last week by beating Wigan. But I've been thinking about that, and I'm going to go back again in time, not to the 60s. So anybody that wants to shut down, they can go now. But there's an even greater win against Wigan, and that was in 1971. Now, I was in Australia, I think, at the time.
How old was you then, Keith? What, 50s?
No, it's 24.
Oh.
No, yeah, about 24, I think. Anyway, I went to Australia in 71. I was born 46. Yeah, 24, 20, whatever it was. It doesn't matter. But Rovers played Wigan, right? And Wigan had gone through 31 games without defeat. You might not know about this, being only a youngster, but some of the viewers or listeners might remember the game. And Rovers played Wigan, and Wigan had won 31 games on the trot and was going, obviously, for the 32nd game. And Rovers' team that day had 9 local lads in it, 9 local players. Do you want me to read the team out? Because I've got it in front of me.
Yeah, I'm sure people will be desperate to hear it.
Well, there was Phil Lowe, Colin Cooper, Eric Palmer, John Millington, Phil Copeland, Terry Clausen, Max Rooms, Flash Flanagan, Johnny Moore, Ian Markham. They was the local lads. The four imports was Terry Clausen, Paul Daly, who used to play for Halifax, Roger, God rest him, and a kid called Jeff Drury, who actually left Rovers, come back to Australia and played with me at Maitland. But anyway, Rovers beat them that day. And I'm led to believe there was 4 kids from the same school. Now, I might not be right about this one, but I think there was 4 lads who all went to Charterhouse School. And that was hell of an achievement, better achievement, if you like, than what Hull did last week. So I just thought I'd bring it up. So because I'm always so negative, or so everybody said, and go back to the 60s. Well, I've jumped 10 years, right? And that, you know, you can look it up. I've got it in front of me. I've got the actual press cutting. That,
why was that result so significant, Keith?
The fact that Wigan had won 31 games on the trot. 31 games without losing, and Rovers knocked them off. That was why.
That's some runners, isn't it? 31 games on the trot.
Yeah. It was. They had. I haven't got the Wigan side, and obviously I wasn't there. But there was a lot. I mean, Lowy was only a kid then, 1971. He was 4 years younger than me, so he was only 21, I think. Colin Cooper was not old. Eric Palmer, he'd come back from Keighley. Milo, those to say, Phil Copeland, Max Rooms, Flash. Roger had been there, 5 years at Rovers. Johnny Moore. I don't know how old Ian was. And Jeff Drury was only 20 odd, I think, when he come back to Maitland. So no, I just thought it was worth mentioning because everybody's scouting about what Hull had done and great win. That's a better one for me, right? Anyway,
and that's this week's edition of Keith's Corner. Make sure you tune into the Robin Pod next week to hear another edition of Keith's Corner. There you go, Scott. Keith's Corner.
It looked shocked that you cut him off. It was good though. I like that. Yeah, 1971. It was a positive story from young Keith, wasn't it? So that was nice. Yeah, I did
tell him it was 5 minutes, and if he's still talking, he's done. So, so let's see what Keith comes up with next week's Keith's Corner. But I tell you what, you know, as much as we take the mickey, and some people won't as well, of course. But great to hear about the Rovers sides of Wolves, because that's one of the problems we've got in rugby league is that trying to get footage or information from games sort of pre-80s is almost impossible. You're almost having to go to bloody British Pathé news to see it from the 20s rather than anything from the 50s and 60s. So it's great to hear about wins from a long time ago. Like I said, let's see what Keith comes up with. Is 5 minutes next week. Nathan, something that came as a surprise, probably bigger than Keith getting his own segment on the Robin Pod, was the signing of Mickey McAlorum. Is that one that you saw coming?
No, I don't think many people saw it coming, did it? I haven't really fully formed an opinion of it yet because I'm still sort of reeling from it. it's a good. He's got experience. Obviously, he's 36, so he's getting up there in years. But if he can have one good season and help us win a trophy, then I'm sure he'll be remembered very, very fondly after that. It is a shame that we're losing 𝗂𝗏𝗧, though, I must say.
Scott, they've done us an absolute like a kipper there, because on last week's Robin Pod, we was bigging up Bill Leyland from London after it was announced that we were signing him on a 2-year deal, and we're talking about him coming into the lineup and carrying on his form that he showed last season in the Broncos when they achieved promotion. And we're bigging up Bill Leyland, saying he's going to be a great foil for Ches Lytton. We're sure there's a great play in there. And then they go sign Mackie Lorum. And it's like, whoa, where's that come from? But, Scott, one thing you can't doubt is obviously age isn't on his side, but he's a winner. He's got a bit of grub about him. He's got a bit of quality about him. And if you imagine as a foil for Ches Lytton, how that dynamic works. I mean, 𝗬𝗓𝗎𝗓 spoke in the press conference yesterday that he's hoping to give game time to Leyland, McIlorum and Lytton next season. He's a vastly experienced player, and it's not a deal you can really sniff at, is it? Because I think with that transition from 𝗂𝗏𝗧 leaving, we probably do need that bit of experience in the side, especially in that position.
Without a doubt, and we've seen this season that Willie's gone with, although Rhys Butterworth's come back to Dewsbury full time. We did start the season with 3 hookers, so he does like that that third hooker to be in or around the squad. I think if we'd have gone with, I mean, it was left field, Michael McIlorum coming into OKR. We all thought, didn't we? We're just going to go with Lytton and Leyland with the 2 hookers next season, but. As I say, running with 3 hookers this season, just when you think about it, does suggest that he was looking at a third hooker. But I just didn't expect it to be Michael McIlorum for a year. It does bring vast experience. What is he, 36 now? But it's a fantastic player. Still playing week in, week out for Catalan. It's not as if he goes hiding. He only plays a couple of games here and there. He's turning out every single week, putting in the minutes as well. And I think he's still topping the tackle count week in, week out, things like that. As a 36-year-old, it's a no-brainer for a year, isn't it? It has to be. And if Ches learns a bit more from him, and Leyland learns a bit more from Ches and McIlorum, well, it's a no-brainer for a year. It's got to be. Even just having him in and around the club is a fantastic achievement to get him as a OKR player for a year. I think Tyrone May might have had a few words in his ear from what I'm hearing. I think there's a little bit of that going on, but it's a great signing for us, I think, for a year. Yeah.
Nathan, London up next. We've got the squad's been announced for the game earlier today. James Batchelor and Niall Evalds are back in the squad. Great to see them back. Of course, Evalds, many feared he'd be out for a lot longer than what he has been. Batchelor, frustratingly injured when there was very much every opportunity that he could have been called into the England side. Tyrone May misses out. I mean, we've been talking about his tackling. He suffered a head injury against Leeds. He's been assessed by the club doctor, and they've decided that it's best for him to be out the side. Conor Barley, he drops out of the 21-man squad. Is it a case of Rovers just playing their strongest team on Friday, or are you expecting 𝗬𝗓𝗎𝗓 to rest some players?
I'm expecting a bit of a mixture of both, to be honest. I wouldn't want him to go and think that because it's London, we can put out a second string side and still run away with it. I think that shows a lack of respect to London. And in a lot of ways, I feel sorry for the predicament they're in. I think if you go with as strong as a starting 11 as you can, but maybe take a couple of people out for a rest. Maybe not Minchella. I think I would stick with him. I think if Evalds isn't 100%, you don't risk him, because I think he's shown in the last couple of weeks what a fulcrum he is for the side, how he ties everything together. I don't think you take any risks, but I don't think you throw out a weakened side either.
Now, the first ever stat attack on the Robin Pod is going to feature our opponents on Friday night. And this information is from the London Broncos. Now, the first time that the Broncos took on 𝗀𝗂𝗧𝗏 was on February the 17th, 1982 at Craven Park, when 𝗀𝗂𝗧𝗏 came away with a 20-3 victory over then Fulham Rugby League Football Club in front of an audience of just over 7,000 fans. 𝗀𝗂𝗧𝗏 have won 6 of the last 7 games which the Broncos have played at Craven Park. 𝗀𝗂𝗧𝗏 have taken on Broncos in 3 of their different names since the first meeting back in 1982. They are, of course, Fulham, RLFC, Harlequins Rugby League, and London Broncos. And the two sides have played each other in many different venues. I wonder how many of these you can remember, Scott. Craven Cottage, Craven Park, the Polytechnic, the Valley, Barnet Cop Hall, the Stoop, the Hive Stadium, Trailfinders, and now, of course, they are based at the Cherry Reds Record Stadium in Wimbledon. Throughout the years of this fixture, the Broncos have accumulated a point difference of minus 559, scoring 736 points and conceding 1,295 points. The highest try scorer for London in the history of this fixture is a joint battle between Kieran Dixon, Mason Caton-Brown, and Chad Randall, with them all scoring 4 tries. The player that made the most appearances for the Broncos in the history of this fixture is Chad Randall, with 14 appearances, which spanned between 2007 and 2013. And London's biggest win over 𝗀𝗂𝗧𝗏 came on June the 12th, 2009, when Harlequins defeated 𝗀𝗂𝗧𝗏 40-10 at Craven Park. 𝗀𝗂𝗧𝗏's biggest win over the Broncos came on July 26, 2014, when KR defeated London 62-10 at the Valley in front of an audience of just over 1,000 people. Now, Scott, when you look at this fixture against London, I mean, obviously, like Nathan said, it's not a game we can take lightly. I'm fully expecting 𝗬𝗓𝗐𝗏𝗄s to probably put out his strongest possible side. Question marks over Danny Richardson, whether he's going to come into the side. But I'm struggling to work out how they might line up, Scott, because we've seen that 𝗬𝗓𝗐𝗏𝗄s isn't afraid to do things differently to what we expect. Can you gauge how we might line up on Friday night?
How do we read Willie's mind? He does all sorts of bizarre things sometimes, doesn't he? I agree with Nathan. I think, he will put his strongest team up, but he won't risk anybody. I'm opposite to Nathan, though. I think he might rest 𝗵𝗂𝗏𝗏. I think Hadley might come in at loose forward instead, and he'll bring another forward onto the bench. I think Evalds will only play if he's 100%. I don't think he needs to play. Jack Broadbent did enough there against Leeds to play there again. I think Danny Richardson will take Tyrone May's place in the halves alongside Mikey. Apart from that, I don't see that many changes really. But I can see 𝗵𝗂𝗏𝗏 being rested. As you said, at the end of the Leeds game, he looked out on his feet, didn't he? And with that sort of his head bandaged up as well. Considering we've got Warrington week after, I think it'd be wise maybe just to give 𝗵𝗂𝗏𝗏 a week off, because he hasn't had a week off yet, really, has he? Apart from when him playing for England as well, he hasn't had that week off like other players have had. So if there is an opportunity to give him a week off, it's probably this week. And Dino can slot into 13 if need be, and I'm sure there are others who can do it as well. So I don't see many changes. I think Richardson is the natural choice to come into halfback with Mikey. Jack might stay at fullback. But yeah, apart from that, I don't see that much change really.
Yeah, Mr. Hull Rockers, who's watching on YouTube, he's put points difference will be crucial at the end of the season. A big win on Friday could be the difference. Of course, the Robins have got to secure the 2 points first and then worry about the scoreline second. But if you take a look at the league table, you've got Wigan on 28 points. You've then got Warrington on 26, with Rovers in third on 26. And then you've got a chasing pack of St Helens, Catalan and Salford all on 22 points. Wigan are 56 points to the better than Rovers, Warrington are 16 points to the better, and Saints are 38 points to the better. Now, if it's going to be, Nathan, a close run battle for the fair second, third spots come the end of the season, points difference really could come into it.
Absolutely, especially when it's also tight at the top, as you described. I mean, I think fifth are only 2 or 4 points behind fourth as well. So you have to take these. You have to take every game as an opportunity to up your points difference. It's not only the lower teams, the likes of your London, your Castleford, your Hull FCs, dare I say, that you need to use your points difference. You need to make sure you get over the line and you're scoring as much as you can week in, week out. That's pretty much the only way you can secure yourself a top of the table spot. I mean, if results go our way this weekend, Warrington beat Wigan and we win by quite a big margin, we could end this weekend on the top of the table. So it's fine margins, isn't it?
Yeah, and Scott, I mean, we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. Of course, Wigan take on Warrington this weekend. We face the London Broncos. And then there's a huge game next week, isn't there, when we travel over to Warrington to take them on. A side that Willie Peters is yet to beat during his tenure as Rovers head coach. We've got 4 games away from home. We've got 4 games at home. And looking ahead, you'd surmise that the away games, which are against Warrington, Saints, Salford, Leigh, and of course Leeds, Catalan at Leeds, they could be pivotal come the end of the season. But Willie Peters' mantra is very much, it's the next game in front of you, isn't it? And he seems to be one who doesn't get too far ahead of ourselves. And I think maybe supporters, that's maybe something we need to do as well, isn't it? And just take each game as it comes, because each game is getting more and more important.
Yeah, you do have to literally take each game as it comes. You know, we still have to go to Wigan as well, don't we? At the JJB or the Brick Stadium, whatever it's called now as well. So we've got some absolute. Well, you've got to play every team, haven't you? Some, I know it's some 3 times, some twice, but the away games we've got left are there's some stinkers there, aren't they? And we're going to have to get that off our backs about winning in Lancashire. We're going to have to go somewhere in Lancashire. You know, whether it's Warrington next week or Saints, Wigan, Leigh, whoever, we've got to get a win in Lancashire or 2 wins somewhere along the line. Because if we don't, we can't get that monkey off our back, can we? And I don't know what it is about going to Lancashire. We know the good sides of these teams and the tough places to go, but at the end of the day, we've got to get a win against one of these big clubs. If we truly believe that we are going to achieve something, whenever that may be, we've got to start going to these places, not winning every time we go there, but winning on a regular basis when we do go there. We've got to find that somehow.
Now, the first player to feature on Robins Remembered is Mike Fletcher, the proud owner of heritage number 839, a player who played nearly his full career for the Robins before joining the Hunslet Hawks in 1998. He played 360 times for the Robins. He scored 56 tries. He kicked 1,268 goals. and he accumulated 2,760 points for the Robins, which is a record for the club. He's also the proud owner of the most goals kicked for the Robins, and he featured regularly at either fullback or centre. He played twice for the Great Britain under-21s, and he made his debut in April 1985 against Widnes. He holds the record for the most points and goals scored in a single season when he achieved 450 points and 199 goals in the 89-90 season. And he holds the record with 3 other players for the joint most goals in a game, which is 14, and was scored against Whitehaven on the 18th of March, 1990. Now, of course, it was a player who had lots and lots of memorable games for the Red and White of Hull Kingston Rovers. 2 to name a couple. Of course, the Silk Cup plate final at Wembley in 1997 when the Robins won 60 points to 14 against Hunslet. He scored 8 goals in that game. And lots of people will remember the derby from 1997 at Bulford Park when Mike Fletcher scored a last-minute try to make sure that the Robins were victorious in a 24 points to 22 victory. The other scorers that day were Gary Atkins, Paul Fletcher and Paul Rouse. A fantastic player who featured for the Robins for well over a decade. This is Robins Remembered. Scott, memories of Mike Fletcher.
Outstanding. What a player. When Rovers weren't very good, and I mean that in the nicest possible way, we still had a team that gave absolutely everything on the pitch. Back in the days of Division 2, Division 1, going to places like Runcorn, Highfield and Lancashire Lynx and South Wales and 𝗀𝗏𝗄𝗏. I was at them all, every single game. And whenever Mike played, what a player. He gave, it was the first to admit that it wasn't the best player, but he gave everything for the badge of 𝗀𝗏𝗏. I believe he was, as a young lad, I think he was a big footballer. There was a chance for him to make it as a decent footballer, but rugby league came his way, and he came down to Rovers, I think, with another couple of lads, and ended up signing for Rovers. Another little stat about Mike, I think, and I'm sure I'm right when I say this. I think he scored the last 𝗀𝗏𝗏 try at the old Craven Park against Widnes, and he also scored the first 𝗀𝗏𝗏 try at the new ground against Trafford Borough. So it was the last try score at the old ground and the first try score at the new ground for Rovers. Great player was Mike, and he's a nice kid as well. If you ever get to speak to Mike, a really, really nice kid. Still Rovers through and through, still at most of the matches, still there cheering the Robins on. Great player, great kid.
Yeah, Scott, that's almost 2 stat attacks in one episode of the Robin Pod there. Great knowledge. We'll finish on the prediction league because Scott, you sit pretty at the top. Well, you did sit pretty until
I bottled it, didn't I? I bottled it.
Yeah, you backed Leeds, didn't you, on Saturday?
Only for the new coach effect. That's what it was, really. But you know, I was wrong.
You weren't the only one because James Perlin, Dan Craft, and Leeds Rhinos fan Statman Reese, they all predicted Rhinos victory. Of course, they were incorrect. Steve Till, he predicted a Robins victory. Not only did he predict a Robins victory, he also predicted the correct scoreline. So he shot up the table into 5th place. So it's going to be interesting to see how it pans out for the rest of the season. Nathan, huge thanks for joining us on the Robin Pod this week. Just remind people where people can find Gerrim Onside and how people can contribute and what kind of content they'll find if they do seek you out.
So they can find us on Gerrim Onside, that's GERRIM and then onside.wordpress.com. If you want to write for us, it's gerrimonside@gmail.com. I'm looking for fans of any stripe, and I want to know about different experiences. One of the ones that I had right for me, a guy called Sean French, who's a Hull FC fan, who wrote about his memories of the smell of Bovril at Boulevard, and it's stuff like that. I'm going to be writing the next couple of weeks a piece about what it's like being a blind rugby league fan, which I am. I'm registered blind, and how I can still enjoy the game at Craven Park, which I've been wanting to do for a while but never got around to it. So I'm going to be doing that soon. So whatever your experience in writing, I just want to know what being a rugby league fan means to you, what your club means to you, and any different experiences that you want to write about. I'm willing to listen to.
That's absolutely fantastic, Nathan. Thank you for that. And I'm sure the Hull FC reporter, he's very lucky if all he did smell was Bovril, because it could have been far worse for him, obviously, over at the Boulevard. And whilst we're mentioning that lot, congratulations to Rovers Scholarship side, who rounded off their season tonight. They beat the Black and Whites 22 points to 20 in a closely fought contest at Craven Park. So congratulations to them. This has been the Robin Pod Weekly, which is powered by Budget Ties Auto Centre, the only car specialist trusted by the players, club officials and supporters of Hull Kingston Rovers. But for now, live, love, laugh and be happy.